Well, a very good morning and welcome to the third of our Back to Business seminars in partnership with our friends at Cisco Webex, live from these amazing premises at the NASDAQ Dubai. My name's Richard Dean, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour or so from, of course, the Business Breakfast Programme on Dubai Eye 103.8. Now, this morning we are joined by some of the UAE's most innovative minds to discuss a key topic on the subject of pretty much every business person's lips: digitization. So in this webinar over the next 60 minutes or so, we'll be asking, with everyone in the market moving online in some way, shape or form, how do you make sure that yours is the one that's offering customers the most compelling proposition? So here's the deal. Joining us virtually via Webex, we have Yemi Abitogun, is head of Omnichannel Operations for Level Shoes. Now, here's what Yemi does on a day-to-day basis. He's responsible for the implementation and the execution of brand-enhancing customer and growth initiative. Now, Level Shoes is the biggest shoe shop in the world by some measures, with a physical store in Dubai Mall and, as of this month, a brand new mobile app for customers across the UAE, KSA, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Bahrain, and also Kuwait. We're delighted to have him on board. And finally, it's a real pleasure to have a technology specialist. Osama AlZubi is the Chief Technology Officer for Cisco Middle East and Africa, with more than 23 years of ICT experience. Now, in his role, Osama drives technology strategy and also innovation, working closely with government agencies and the private sector across this entire region, the Middle East and also Africa. It's a big remit, very different challenges in some of those countries, not a homogenous approach. Now, he's also, I can tell you, the author of The Digital Disruption, which explores how governments and also individuals like us can understand and take advantage of this key topic, digitalization. So, what I would say about Osama is that Cisco are far more than just our partners on this webinar series. They are part of the solution as well. It is software like theirs, Webex, but much more than that, that's been keeping businesses around the world communicating, digitally transforming, and moving forward. So it's a real pleasure to have them with us this morning. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for that. Look, very quickly before we go to our first question, and I would encourage everyone listening on Cisco Webex and watching to send in questions using the chat function. The speed of change is unprecedented. I'm from the Business Breakfast, so I'm going to throw a few stats at you, which our producer Georgia Tolley has put together, and they do tell quite a story. Right, first set of statistics. In the United States, the penetration of e-commerce was previously forecast to reach 24% by 2024. However, this year, it's gone from 17 to 33% in just 2 months. Staggering. What about here in the UAE? Well, Majid Al Futtaim, one of the biggest organizations, the CEO Alan Bajani told the Business Breakfast that online grocery sales had risen by 300% during the pandemic. The scale of change is just staggering. Globally, Amazon, I'm sure we all know, has posted record figures for its third quarter, increasing net sales by 37% to $96 billion. Jeff Bezos, of course, increased his wealth to a staggering $193 billion. If you put together the Bezos wealth and his wife Mackenzie, it's over $250 billion. Meanwhile, one of the world's biggest retailers, Inditex, which owns brands like Zara and Massimo Dutti, it's shutting 1,200 fashion stores around the world. It's investing instead into its online platforms where sales, and this is the last stat I'm going to give you, but it's a biggie, sales rose 74% year on year in the first 6 months of 2020. This is not a plucky startup that has exponential growth rates. This is Inditex, an incredible organization. It is Zara. So, what are we going to do over the next 55 minutes or so? Well, during this webinar, we're going to focus on business leaders, CEOs, but also government officials, people in the not-for-profit sector as well, can ensure that their website or app or whatever it may be wins the first click. We're going to spotlight the problems, the pinch points in consumer interaction and delivery, and we're going to look at what really works in terms of online marketing, incentives, and loyalty schemes, so you get maximum bang for your digital buck. By the end of this session, by the time we wrap up at 11:30ish, you should have a list of best practices to help future-proof your organization. So these are just a few of the themes that we're going to be covering with the panel. But as I say, watching us right now, a specially selected guest list of just 40 people, and you are not mere spectators, let me tell you. We want you to be involved in this. We've already had a bunch of questions in ahead of the event, but you can still keep on asking questions, making comments, sharing your experience as well. Use the Cisco Webex chat function. We are monitoring that one very, very closely. And with that, we dive straight into our first question. I'm going to start, Yemi, if I may, with you at Level Shoes, because you've been living and breathing this. You've been implementing these changes, and the fruits of your labor are now live. Your app launched at the beginning of November. Here's my question. Was digitalization always a priority for you guys at Level Shoes, or did the pandemic make everything more urgent?
Hi, everyone. So to answer your question, yes, it was always on our roadmap, digitalization. We had 9 key pillars at the start of the year, and one of them was digitalization in terms of growing our e-commerce business, downloading an app, creating an app, and also expanding into new markets. So it was always part of the plan. But as everybody else has seen, the pandemic accelerated that rapidly to start of the year when everything was supposed to be back end of this year or slow drips and drabs. So we've seen exponential growth in our e-com. We've seen exponential growth in our app sales as well. So it's been an amazing year actually from a digitalization point of view.
So talk to me through the process of how you did it. It's one thing identifying, okay, the problem, challenges with bricks and mortar retail, the solution is going digital, but how did you do it, and how did you do it quickly, Remy?
So the first thing that we look at is we use data, and the data that we have all around around our customers, around our sales, around the territories that we want to go into. Once we have that data, we then look at segmenting our customers. Which of our customers do we actually need to target? Which of those customers could do with digitalization? And where is the new growth avenues for us? Once we had that strategy built in place, then it was down to the e-com team at Level Shoes to really go out and find the best providers to create the Level Shoes app. But before we could even get to the Level Shoes app, we had to make sure that our website was up to the ability to take in the volume of traffic that came to the website during the early days of the pandemic. So the team, the product team worked really, really hard in stabilizing the platform. They worked really, really hard in making sure that the bandwidth to taking that traffic was at its optimal best. And then all that data that we got from that and the ability to sell through that was then plugged into the app, and we got the best app provider to actually build the app that we are now launched at the start of this month.
Well, that's interesting because we've had a question in from Yasmin Kojak, who's on the webinar this morning over Cisco Webex, and says, it's a really interesting question. Where did you start? Because it's all well and good having this grand strategy, but there's got to be, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the single step. What was your first single step?
The first single step was at the start of the year, which was our 9 pillars of our strategy, which is where are our growth avenues. So that was the first and main thing. The thing with Level Shoes is it's the world's biggest department shoe store. It's located in the Dubai Mall. The challenge we have with that is it's also only located in the Dubai Mall. If we want to expand to other territories, other new customers, we have to look at where else we can get to. Now, to set up another store in another part of the world is a very expensive thing. So we really looked at how can we actually get to our customers while still remaining unique and authentic to our customers at the mall. So we started with creating that strategy, and then we started with actually looking at segmenting our customers, who are our customers, and which customers are in need of digitalization, because not all customers are in need of digitalization. A lot of customers want to come into the physical store. A lot of customers will never go online. So there's no point in creating something for those guys. It's all about the customers that are actually going for the digitalization.
It's interesting that you segmented like that, and almost took the brave decision to accept that there were some customers you were never going to win over with digital. We'll come back to that in a second and what role bricks and mortar still has to play in this, because the level shoes in Dubai Mall is, I have to say, truly stunning. It's won 1 million design awards just for the retail space, never mind the shoes. Osama, if I can bring you in now. Now, as the Chief Technology Officer of Cisco, you have a bit of a head start on all of us, I'm not going to lie, because you're part of the solution. You're helping businesses and indeed countries on some level transform and stay ahead of the competition. So I'm going to start, if I can, with 3 quick, rapid-fire preliminary questions for you. Is that okay?
That's good, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
here's the first bullet. To what extent has COVID-19 accelerated the process, or was this just happening anyway?
So first of all, Richard, good morning to you. Good morning to my fellow panelists, Your Excellency and Yemi, and good morning to your entire audience, wherever they are hearing us from. I would like to wish everyone to be very safe and healthy during this very unfortunate pandemic. There is no doubt that, as you mentioned, Richard, we have been experiencing unprecedented changes in the industry. Up until the end of 2019, we in the industry and the technologists, we thought we got good handle of it. And then towards the end of 2019, what happened? We were hit with this unfortunate pandemic. And yes, indeed, as we look around us in every single industry, education, healthcare, retail, as Yemi mentioned earlier, and every single industry found themselves overnight in an area where they wanted to go back to technology, relying on technology to maintain business continuity. There is no doubt, Richard, that yes, we believe that the pandemic has really moved much faster. Most of those projects were either in consideration or work in progress or on hold to actually move at an accelerated pace. And what we have seen is that some of those projects that used to take months and years have been done, in some cases weeks and days. Why? Because most of these organizations and businesses need to demonstrate business continuity, for which enabling employees to work remotely and maintain the continuation of the business.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens in practice. Say you've got a CEO who comes to you and says, Osama, we need to digitalize. We get that we need to do this. What promises can you make to that CEO, and how do you approach the process of digital transformation?
We work with our customers and partners in the Middle East and Africa based on partnership. While Cisco has been in the region since 1993, and we have led locally and globally many of the market transitions and utilizing the disruptive technologies to enable business, we never make unsubstantiated promises to our customers. We actually look at every customer as a unique individual organization. Every organization is at a different pace or at a different phase within the journey of digitization. And therefore, I really loved what Yemi mentioned earlier. When you asked him, where did he start the digitization journey or the digitalization journey? He spoke about focusing on the customers, focusing on the customer experience. Likewise, we do exactly the same. We need to understand the industry our customer is in. We need to understand which phase the customer is at. And based on that, we provide the capabilities, the technologies, and the experience which allow the customer to capitalize on technology to address and solve the business challenges. For example, we call it bringing technology to life, truly utilizing a technology in a way that delivers on business outcome. Around the globe, Cisco has what we call Innovation and Experience Center. For us in the Middle East and Africa, actually, one of our own is based in Dubai, exactly where you are, Richard. And in that, what do? We really bring the technology end to end, where we call it the technology journeys, which really provide the capabilities, for example, in healthcare, education, retail, banking, transportation, you name it. Based on the industry, we bring the technology and the power of technology to enable this digitization and to enable transformation, delivering on business outcome.
So just to labour this point about where to start with this process, and Yasmin asked it earlier on, Cynthia Richards has been in touch saying, where do you start the process of digitalisation? Because here's the thing, Osama, and this is not a criticism of you or your organisation, but CEOs I've spoken to, and you as well I'm sure, fear that if they turn up to a large global technology company, whoever it may be, essentially they're just going to get sold a bunch of stuff, maybe a bunch of products, maybe a bunch of services, but they're just going to be sold to. How do you start the process? And nothing wrong with selling. I mean, we're all in business. This is the business breakfast, that's fine. But how do you make sure that you start the process not with seeing dollar signs in your eyes when a big organization comes to you, but genuinely looking to kind of identify a problem and then solve it? Because, you know, you've all got targets. Everyone's got targets.
Historically, technologies was sold bottom up. If we look at where technology normally is, if you look at infrastructure, you look at data center, you look at data equipment, etc., all of those were really built bottom up. And as you mentioned, historically, that maybe worked for the most part. We at Cisco believe that what has worked over the past 3-4 decades absolutely will not work for the future. So what do? We really start top down. We start at the boardroom. We start with a very specific business outcome. We believe technology has massive power and capability, yet it does not mean anything unless it delivers on business outcome. And therefore, as I mentioned, it really starts with understanding the customer challenges, customer priorities, customer's business outcome, and customer industries. And based on that, we bring technology to life to deliver on those business outcomes. No matter how expensive or cheap technology is, if it does not deliver on business outcome to create the disruption, to create really the competitive advantage, or as you mentioned, the compelling reasons for the customers, then technology doesn't mean anything.
We've got so many questions coming in. I'm going to go straight to some of those first of all. We've got a few questions for Yemi at Level Shoes. I'm going to bunch two of them together. Ian has written in saying, hey Yemi, I understand that an app is probably the best route to market, but at what stage of the cycle do we move from just having a microsite to going to an app? And I'll add on to that my own question. How do you balance and I'm sure you have these discussions, launching your own app and having that direct relationship with your customer versus going on a platform like, for example, Noon.com. I know Dubai Mall has a relationship with Noon.com or Amazon or whoever it may be. Can you talk me through those discussions behind the scenes at Level Shoes and the other options you considered and why the one that you eventually settled on was the app?
Yeah, no problems. To be totally honest with you, the other discussions were never really came to the table. The reason why it never really came to the table is because it's all about making sure that we have a direct communication with our customers. By going on the other platforms, what tends to happen is you lose that touch with the customer, and the customer then becomes a customer of your Noon.coms, of your Farfetch, of your Net-a-Porter, etc., and you don't actually have that close relationship with the customer. So moving on from a website, which used to be the basic standard, and that is great, but it also means that the communication strategy you have with your customer is not as instant and is not as in detail as you would like it, because what happens with website is you don't have the ability to do push notifications. You don't have the ability to be able to speak to the customer directly without coming out of the website and sending them an email, for example. And as you know, emails are a platform which people don't tend to interact with as much nowadays because they get spammed, etc., and so forth. So it was always a question of an app. We had the website. We made sure that all our products were on the website. We made sure that we had the best stability, the best products, the exclusive product offering on our website so our customers could enjoy. But then we have to then move into communication, being able to understand our customers. And the only way we could do that is to have a more closer relationship with our customers. And that meant moving on to an app. With the app, you get more intimacy with your customer. You can give them push notifications. They can talk to you in real time, speak to our customer service, etc. They can speak to our our clienteling ambassadors, etc. Plus, you also get a better user experience. And this is the key thing I have to say. Again, everything you do, or everything we do, I should say, is all about the customer. We believe that the best experience that we could give to our customers was to give them the best UI, was to give them the best customer experience. And the only way we could deliver that, or actually the best way we could deliver that, was through the app.
We've got loads of questions coming in right now. I really like Tarek's question. Cuts to the chase. Tarek, you could have a job on the Business Breakfast. He says, how is the Level Shoes app performing? He wants numbers.
Well, I can't give you the numbers that that you are really looking for, but I will say if you look on the App Store right now, we're number 4 in the downloads. So we are doing pretty well with the downloads. Our customers are really engaging. We had Singles Day last week, and I think something along the lines of 30 to 40% of all of our sales came through the app. So we are doing really well, meeting expectations, and maybe even in some areas going above expectations with the launch of the app. So we're really happy though.
You're crushing Candy Crush. That's a big deal. Let's continue with so many questions coming in today. Really enjoying this conversation. Osama, if I can turn to you. The main challenges that your clients are facing when it comes to digitalization. We mentioned in the introduction those pinch points. What are the pinch points typically your clients are facing, and how do you overcome them? Give us a couple of examples if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there are indeed a few challenges that most of our customers are facing. When it comes to digitization, it's really an involved process. It is not about technology only. It is about technologies, people, processes, and things. When you bring all of these combined, there is no doubt you're going to face some challenges. So let's talk about some of them. Some of them, and many of our customers actually are common in this, is the culture of the employees. Because in order for you to make the digitalization process work, the culture of employees have to be transformed. Another one is when it comes to technology, just remember what I said earlier about we thought we had good handle on technology. And now with this exponential disruption, technology is everywhere and it's being utilized. And now you have to consider things that you did not consider before. And therefore, cybersecurity rise to the top of the list that many of our customers and partners have to deal with. Cybersecurity is definitely the top and the most important challenge that most of our customers face. Cybersecurity, in our view at Cisco, we believe it really must be considered as an end-to-end intrinsic capability to every technology process that we do and not thought after the fact. Cybersecurity is key for whether we talk about it from the data perspective or from the infrastructure perspective or from the connectivity perspective, end-to-end. Layered in defense in depth and layered security is critical. Another challenge that our customers face, Richard, is, as you mentioned, many vendors today come to our customer base, and basically what they are trying to do is that they provide technology. Sometimes it gets extremely complex and overwhelming to deal with so many different technologies from so many different vendors. The ability to integrate and to connect and to consolidate and really deliver on those business outcomes becomes extremely challenging. So in summary, 3 of those challenges. Number 1 is the culture of the employees and the adoption of technology. Number 2 is cybersecurity. And number 3 is the ability to deal with multi-vendor environments.
Okay, so to pick up on the multi-vendor environment thing, that's interesting. How do you make sure as Cisco that you play nicely with companies that are in some sense your competitors? Now, in a way, Cisco is a unique organization. There's no direct competitor for Cisco. There's no kind of Coke versus Pepsi. But of course, as you well know, your services and products overlap with many, many others, whether the other big US tech giants or international firms as well. Can you give me an example of how you make sure you do play nicely with those if your client is working with one firm in India and a supplier from China and another of the big US tech firms, and or a local integration company based in Sharjah, for example. How do you actually go about doing that in practice, Osama?
Absolutely. This is really a very, very important and excellent questions. When you look at technology and you bring multiple pieces together, in order for you to deliver on the actual value of that technology, unfortunately, it comes down to the lowest common denominator. How do we bring the speed of innovation that companies are racing for, and Cisco is no exception. We spend massive amount of R&D yearly to bring the latest and greatest innovations to our customers and partners. So how do you bring that balance of really the speed of innovation, but at the same time, ability to deliver on industry standards so we can provide that seamless integration and seamless capability? Remember earlier in my opening, I spoke about the innovation and experience centers that we have around the globe. What do? We bring our partners and ecosystem partners, for which not only we bring Cisco technology, but also we bring our ecosystem and technology partners on board to deliver on the digital journey and the business outcome that we want to bring to our customers. We believe that we bring some of the latest and greatest innovation to our customer, yet we are absolutely bringing the capabilities of the industry standards to enable our customers the simplicity, but at the same time, the seamless integrations with existing technology.
Questions coming in thick and fast right now. I've got one from Sanjay who says this: my problem is that my business still sees far more offline sales than online sales. He says the gulf is not even measurable, it's so wide. How can I educate my consumers to shift their patterns to online so that we can be the first disruptor? Yemi, maybe you can have a stab at this one.
So first thing I would say there is do you want your customers to move over to the digital channels? Is it the right thing for them to move to the digital channels versus the offline channel? Do your customers actually want to move to the digital channels? These are the key questions that you need to ask yourself, because you need to start off with the customers first. If the idea is to move customers onto the more online channels because it saves you cost, because it gives you better business efficiency, etc., but at the end of the day, your customers don't want it, then I would actually question the strategy there. So the question really should go back to, do your customers want to move to the online channel? And if so, speak to those customers. Speak to your existing customers and ask them, do some surveys, do some focus groups, etc., and ask them, why is it that you choose the offline versus your online? How can we move you onto the online channels? What incentives are there, and what benefits could you gain from moving to the online channel? So it starts with the customer and it finishes with the customer.
I'm going to come back to the point you made right at the beginning, Yemi, which was you had to decide that there were certain customers that were never going to buy from you online, and there was no point even going for them. They would either go into the store in Dubai Mall or they wouldn't buy from you at all. How did you make that calculation? Did you do market research? Was it a bit of intuition? That's really interesting.
Yeah, so at Level Shoes, what we do is we have a very good marketing team which do lots of focus groups. We have NPS listing, voice of our customers. We do lots of research. We have a very, how can I put it, a very cool machine for finding out data of our customers. And because of all of this information and all of this data, we could then really prioritize our customers into segmentations. So we've got a CRM platform, which is a very detailed CRM Salesforce platform. And then this platform helps segment our customers, and then we can really look at the buying patterns of these customers within this particular cohort. We can really understand what is it that these customers do versus these other customers. And once you see the patterns and the trends in each of your different cohorts, then you can then create a strategy of targeting those customers. So you've got certain customers who will never walk into your store because they always want digital. They always want to go online. These tend to be your millennials, etc. So we then create a strategy for those customers. Then you've got your generation of people that only want to go into the store. They want to touch, they want to feel, they want to talk, they want to interact with someone. They want to go old school. Okay, so we have a strategy for those customers. Again, it goes back to the customer. Listen to what our customers want, look at their buying patterns and look at their behaviors, and then create a strategy for each and every single one of those customers.
As well, yeah. Osama, jump in.
Yes, I really would like to add on the earlier question, because I think it's really important. The idea of digitalization is really not to change the user behavior. If those users are comfortable to come to the store, they are absolutely welcome. We want digitalization to give you competitive advantage. The thing maybe we want to look at is how do we expand your business to the rest of the user base to grow your business, not necessarily to change the behavior. We look, for example, in retail, we see that if we look at a recent study with the Euromonitor, that retail has been growing in our region, the Middle East and Africa, has been growing 35% year over year since the 2013. And also, if we look at some key indicators, whether it's the broadband speed or mobile adoption or broadband to the home or the adoption of digital services and digital technologies, we see that our region is really rising to the top in terms of technology adoption. And therefore, the user base is really massive. And the fact that you have some users coming to the stores, that's great. You want to embrace them and deliver the service they want. But now we want to use the digitalization to grow your user base and use that as a competitive advantage to tap into new users.
We've got a question, about the non-profit sector from Dr. Ava. Morning, Dr. Ava, thanks for your question, who says this. If an organisation is not-for-profit with therefore a limited budget, what would be your advice on where to start when it comes to digitisation? It is an organisation that focuses on raising awareness about mental health. It's a very important subject, and Dr. Ava finishes by saying, we already have a website, we are active on the main social media platforms. Where should we focus on next? Osama, do you want to have a crack at that one first? And then Yemi, I'd be really interested to hear your private sector thoughts on that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is no doubt that today many organizations have a responsibility towards the industry. And we at Cisco, during the pandemic, have enabled many users to use a version of our Webex, the very one that we are using right now, to use it for free, to enable people to communicate with their friends and families, but also to use it for certain business capability. We believe that organizations have a responsibility to support and to enable. Yet, when we talk about digitalization, sometimes the word is scary and it is believed to be extremely expensive. The reality, it might not be. And I believe that from Eva, that today they are really doing great. They have a website, they are using the social media. And today, more than ever, we see that platforms are bringing us much closer. Today, I used to do a lot of things physically. So maybe this event, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I would be in person in Dubai. But today I'm able to have multiple events within a day because we are using this platform. So therefore, the utilization of those platforms is really key and critical. And I think they are really doing a great job. Maybe a little bit of enhancement of how they reach massive user base in the region or globally would be probably the next step to look at.
Yemi, what advice can you share with the not-for-profit sector? It seems almost incongruous to ask. You're selling $2,000 shoes, and then we've got the not-for-profit organisation. But I bet there are some lessons you can share. What would be your tips to Dr. Ava?
So for me, the most important thing about digitalization is that you use the digital elements to remove the automation. So automate, use the digital to automate as much as possible, which means that your human interactions become much more meaningful, much more powerful. There is still a place for the human interaction in everything we do. If I talk about the level shoes world, the interaction you can get, the advice you can get is really, really powerful, but use the digitalization to just make people's life easier so they can get to those more meaningful interactions a lot quicker. And that's, to me, the most important thing. So from a non-for-profit sector, simply use the digitalization to automate as much of the information as possible. So sending out, collecting the customer's information, sending out all of the necessary information that they need to get. And then this then means that the interaction about the advice giving and so forth can be much more powerful and a lot more quicker for the person to get access to.
Thank you very much indeed for that. So many questions coming in. Thank you very much indeed, both on the Webex platform and also some questions we had in advance of this event. Asin has written in with a question. Asin, thank you. Shukran jazeelan, because he's asked a question that I selfishly wanted to ask, because he says this: while we're speaking about the technology and apps in relation to retail, he said, I'm curious whether apps have worked in industries like consulting. And the reason this is a completely selfish question is, as well as being a radio presenter, my wife and I own an architectural consultancy, and we are wrestling with this one, as many others are at the moment. How do you take a relatively old-fashioned business model like consulting and digitize it when essentially it's such a human type of industry? Any thoughts on that, Osama, first of all?
Absolutely. I really think that there is no doubt, and I can speak probably to a few examples, there is no doubt that every single industry will be disrupted, and digitalization can add value to that. So yes, consultancy, depending on what consultancy are we talking about. So today, for example, since March, our organization, our company at Cisco have asked more than 70,000 employees to be working from home. And since then, I can assure you that a lot of the work I personally do is really interacting with our customers across more than 70 countries in the Middle East and Africa. And we are talking about very senior officials in government, very senior executives in our customer base, very senior executives in our partner base. And we have really been interacting, and I can assure you that probably my amount of work has doubled. I think that I don't know about a specific mobile app, but there is no doubt that data and digital interaction will play massive role, and consultancy actually might even grow in this type of business, because now you can, through the digital platforms and the digital means, reach much bigger number of customers, much bigger number of organizations. You just now have to start thinking differently. I can assure you that I am taking an executive coach course, for example, right now, and those are consultants educating us how to communicate, and all of that is actually happening digitally, where we are communicating with those consultants who are based around the world.
Yemi, I'm going to throw this question at you again, and it's a bit of a curveball like the last one was, so apologies for that. Initially, a couple of minutes ago, I asked you, what lessons do you think you can take from your B2C retail digitalization and share with the not-for-profit industry? The similar question, what lessons do you think from B2C retail you could share with a B2B industry like consulting? Is there any crossover there, or are they just completely separate entities, would you say?
No, there are some crossovers, but then again, they are some unique entities as well. I think for me, it's not always, we shouldn't always think digitalization and app. We shouldn't always think that the app is the end goal. There are millions and millions and millions of apps out there. I don't think an app is for every single business. I don't think that not all forms of digitalization are right for every single business. So I would go back to what is it that you're trying to achieve first and foremost, and then decide on the best way to access the data, give the experience that you want to those customers. for me, if I'm looking at a consultancy firm, if you're showing lots of pictures, for example, if you're giving lots of data, then maybe the best platform to give that on is actually the laptop. So actually, rather than create an app for it, you'd create a special login on the website so that these customers can have a interaction with you, etc. So I wouldn't always say the app is the be all and end all. The app works very well for certain kinds of businesses and certain kinds of interaction points, but moving forward, the best thing for you to understand is what is the best way for me to reach our customers, and then make a decision.
Loads more questions coming in, and again, a lot of them about non-consumer facing industries, things happening a little bit more in the background. For example, Michael writes in, Michael Lawrence, what's your advice for, he calls it a very conservative industry, such as construction? Again, is there a digitalization strategy, Osama, for the construction industry? Go figure.
Yeah, so I think absolutely there is. There are, and I definitely agree with Yemi, is that digitalization comes in different forms for different industries. It's not really one size fit all, and it's not the same. That's why when you asked me about where, how do we see and what kind of things that we tell our customers and how do we work with our customers, the fundamental part is really understanding the industry they are in and what they are doing. I will definitely talk about construction in a second, but I just don't want to miss the opportunity to speak about what governments, organizations for which we have for years and many decades, we have been interacting with direct physical interaction where we would go to those physical office spaces and get things done. What we have seen that what the United Arab Emirates, what Saudi Arabia has done and other regions, they have really completely disrupted the way that they provide citizen services and what they have done to many of those services and how we interact with them today. It's really one of the leading and transformative things, whether we look how they utilize data, delivering citizen services, providing those capabilities and requirement that we have in the UAE and Saudi Arabia is really impressive. And when we look at, for example, in healthcare today, during the pandemic, there is millions of interaction and consultancy that were provided by physicians and doctors to patients around the region, and that was all delivered on digital platform, which previously we did not think possible. When we start looking at an industry like the constructions, at the end of the day, digitalization is about the fusion of the physical world with the digital world. We are not saying, even as technologists, that digitalization is just purely a one-way going all digital. It is how do we bring technology to life to bring the digital world with the physical world to deliver on business outcome. And there is no doubt that when it comes to construction, providing the efficiency, providing the capability, providing the modeling, and also digital twin. For example, if we look at the digital twin capability, where I am now able to simulate and build all these models with a massive prediction and precision so that we can really transform the industry in construction. There is really many different capabilities that can be brought to transform and accelerate within the construction space.
That with the digitalization of construction, there are many other areas where we can also get some digitalization. Things like your workforce management. How do you plan who works when? Things like your health and safety. There is even apps which can track your employees when they're on a building site. So you know at anyone's time where they are, if they're safe, if they're not offline, etc. So there's many different kinds of digitalization that can really happen in the construction industry. And it doesn't have to be all glitz and glamour for the end customer to see. This can just be core fundamental foundations that give your business the efficiency to be able to build on it.
Yemi, big digital high five to you, because you have segued perfectly to our next question, which came in from Paula. Paula Zietzman said, what changes in organizational design have you witnessed as a result of digitalization? So Yemi, just continue that thought, please, and tell me how Level Shoes is organized now differently to how it was, say, I don't know, 5 years ago. And then Osama, if you could chip in as well on that.
Yeah, so we've really looked at our business and really looked at our capabilities. We've organized the business into having a e-com team, and we've had over the past few years, we've actually grown that e-com team. So it's a much larger team now. Not only do you have trade managers, not only do you have product managers, not only do you have digital marketeers, you also have a fulfillment team to support the e-com strategy. So we've now got a big fulfillment team. That fulfillment team then looks after the last mile, negotiates contracts with the delivery times, etc. So the organization has really set itself up immensely to be able to deal with this digital shift. And as well, we've also done that in the same for the retail team as well. So the retail team now have this thing called Hero. What happens with Hero is that the physical team on the shop floor carry a mobile phone, an iPhone, and a customer who goes on the website can actually interact directly on that website with the physical team in the store. So they can show them pictures of shoes that are on the shop floor. They can show them a video, give them a 360-degree view of that of the shoe, and really interact with the customer so that they can actually finish their purchase online. Again, going back, this is a big shift change for us as a business. And what we've done is we've really set the business up to do this by creating the e-com team, by creating the fulfillment team, by having in-house technicians to actually create some parts of the app, looking after the stability of the website, etc. So the team has really grown and expanded over the last 18 months, I would say, but definitely in the last year.
So I could, for example, say, I'm on the Level Shoes app, I really like Yemi's Belutis. Can you just zoom in on the heel a little bit so I can have a closer look? And they could do that.
Why not? you just want Belutis.
I do want to see your Belutis before this webinar ends or shortly afterwards. We're going to make them an Instagram star. Osama, joking apart from your perspective, how has all this changed? The organisational change within a massive organisation like Cisco, but also the clients that you work with.
Absolutely. So let me just break it down into two pieces. We look at organizations from two perspectives. One is the inside out view, and then the other is the outside in view. Within the inside out view, the employee is really the core at which you really need to focus when you start looking at digitalization. The outside in view, the customer or the consumer is really at the core, whatever that industry is. For example, in healthcare is the patient, for example, retail is the consumer, and so on and so forth. When we look at the inside in, remember, when you asked me about the challenges, what are challenges that are facing our customer, is really transforming the culture. Today, if we look at our employees, for example, they are really faced with tremendous challenges. Number one, the amount of data that they have to deal with, the amount of application that they have to deal with, the tools that they have to really interact with. What we see really, first of all, through the digitalization across over the past few years, but also namely throughout the pandemic, is that the transformation tremendous, and it has the employee or the workforce at its core. Our ability to provide them with the right tools, our ability to provide them with the right data, our ability really to take care of them. As one of the questions was about from the nonprofit organization around the mental health, how do we really interact with our employees? And I am a leader who have employees across more than 70 countries. How do we bring that interaction to a level where it is real and it is absolutely impactful? The employee is really key. And what we see that within our organization, we see that we have moved more into a much more matrix organization where digital platform is really bringing all these teams across many different countries in a way that we have not seen before. And therefore, it really enabled us to bring the productivity and the efficiency of how we use tools to deliver on the requirement that we have based on our roles.
Questions coming in thick and fast. I'm going to try to get to as many as possible. This is a really interesting one. Looking into the future, this is from producer Georgia, looking into the future, what does the current crisis tell us about the digital divide that already existed before COVID, and are there any lessons for that? Your thoughts first of all, Osama, and then maybe a quick word from you, Yemi.
Yes, this is definitely a big concern to global leaders where today, when we look at how digital technology, while for some globally, it meant business continuity. It meant staying connected with those who, of your loved ones or your friends and family, but also stay connected with the government, with healthcare environment, and so on. But unfortunately, for those who don't have it, it meant they are basically left out. And yes, today, for example, if we look, we are more, I would say we're probably just under 4 billion people who are connected out of the near 8 billion people on the planet. And therefore, bringing the digital divide and providing connect the unconnected is really the top of mind. For example, if we look, there is no doubt that UAE has almost achieved 100% of connectivity. Saudi Arabia has almost reached that. Many of our countries within the region, in the Middle East and Africa, we're really proud to say that governments have led the initiative to connect the unconnected and provide those capabilities. And they went out of their way to increase the connectivity speed, whether it's mobile or wired to the homes where basically people are connected. And yes, there is no doubt that bridging the digital divide is the biggest challenge that's facing the world today. And we see many organizations taking real initiatives to really drive this.
Yemi, I'm going to give you a pass on the digital divide question. We've got so many to get through because we've only got a few minutes left. Ian writes in with a question close to my heart. Ian says, I am old enough to remember when good old-fashioned newspaper adverts worked, and the measure of success was whether or not the phones rang. Now with digital, we rely on analytics. How can I measure real performance? And Ian, I can't, my boss, Mahmoud, wouldn't let me let that one pass without a plug for radio advertising, which is still brilliant. I have to do it. It's a cheap plug, but I had to do it. But joking apart, Yemi, from your perspective, you must spend a lot of money on marketing generally, online, offline. How has the marketing mix changed, and how do you measure the success of every marketing dollar that you spend?
Yeah, so we have a thing called, we measure it by return on ad spend. So it's a measurement where we look at how much we spent and then what is the revenue that we get back off it and the number of customers that we get back off it, the number of interactions, etc. So we really look at this return on ad spend and really focus on it. Now, traditionally, yes, it was newspapers, it was billboards, it was TV screens, it was radio advertising, etc. Now you need to go into the new world, which is your Snapchats, your YouTube ads, your influencers, etc. So we really have now moved into a different world. We have a very good marketing team, again, like I said before, and a retail and a digital marketing team, which really looks at, again, the segmentation of our customers.
Can I jump in there on Yemi on the issue of influencer marketing? Because actually, I think Ian's with I don't know, click-through adverts and Google, maybe you can measure that quite precisely. But with influencer marketing, my sense is that it's more of an art than a science, maybe at the moment, measuring the impact of an influencer campaign. Can you share an example of any influencer campaigns you've done and how the ROI on that has stacked up?
We do many influencer campaigns, and there are very unique ways of measuring the impact of the influencer campaign. So, for example, we would do a partnership with an influencer. The influencer would promote our product, and then they would give their customers a special link to say, click here.
Can you give me an example, a specific example of an influencer?
I can't even think of one right now. My mind's gone all blank.
That's fine, don't worry about it.
But we do that, and then once they click on that link, we can track that link to say where is that customer come from, and they're coming from that influencer, and then they're purchasing on that. So then we can go back to that influencer and say, we paid you X amount, we got this amount of customers that came to the site, and we got this amount of customers that actually purchased from us, etc. So
Richard, can I add on this one? It's really critical, and I definitely agree with the question, because we look at this, and one of the things when we look at digitalization, artificial intelligence is really the mother of all trends, and core to that is really the data analytics and your ability to get data, analyze data, and really get insight of that data. For us, the understanding of the customer is key, and therefore we believe that you really need to understand 360 degrees. And how can we bring technology to understand the user behavior, from the ability to do a search all the way to your full interaction until you give them that product and even beyond is really key. And getting that insight today, we are able to do this through advanced artificial intelligence algorithms coupled with the right data and the insight.
Let's wrap it up now. We've only got a few more minutes left. We've had really good one final question, and I've saved this one up from Isaac, and it's a great way to look to the future. Isaac says this: after it's all said and done and the dust settles, if there's a vaccine, etc., for COVID-19, what do you expect would be the landing point? What's your outlook by mid-2021? Do you expect a return to high footfall in shopping malls, for example? It seems that apps and websites are more ingrained at this juncture. So do you expect these technologies like augmented reality to grow as part of customer interaction, or will we go more likely to something like business as usual from November 2019? Couple of minutes each on these, gentlemen, and then we'll make those the concluding thoughts. Yemi, first of all, what's your response to Isaac's question about the landing point in 2021?
So I think the customer purchase behavior has changed 100%. What you will see is moving forward that customers will interact more with their apps, more with their websites, etc., and have a more digitalized interaction. But it will be more than it used to be, but it will not be at the volumes that we saw during the pandemic. So we've just slowly shifted into a more digitalized era, but not at the penetration level that we saw at the pandemic. What you will see as well moving forward is once the vaccine comes in and once there's more confidence in the vaccine, because that's honestly going to be for me a big shift change. Yes, there might be a vaccine, confidence in that vaccine, then you will start seeing more travelers, and then you'll start seeing more footfall in the stores. But even when you see the more footfalls in the store, you're still going to see that shift of customers purchasing online, because some people just want to purchase online. They want to stay in their house, they want to browse everything and then make a decision.
And finally, Osama, to you.
There's no doubt we are all waiting for this pandemic to be over. We believe the world has gone so far, and the world absolutely will not go back. As I mentioned, digitalization is about the fusion of the physical world and the digital world. We believe that a lot of those services and those achievements, many customers, many organizations, many governments that have achieved and have seen the real value through the pandemic will not give them up. As a matter of fact, they will be accelerated. We do not expect the digital or virtual world to replace the physical world. To the contrary, we believe that digital world, virtual world will enhance the experience, will contribute to the quality of life, to job creation, to the way that we live in our cities, to really enjoy all these capabilities and services. And therefore, we pray that we can get over this pandemic very quickly and we go back to our usual life. But digital services and the virtual world will play a critical role in the enhancement and the quality of our lives.
Can I just quickly say something, just real quick on that? I think, again, we need to stay away from digitalization and traditional. Actually, what we need to go to is a more hybrid approach, which is a hybrid approach of both your physical and your digital. And that's really where you're going to see the growth next year, in the more digital, where you can actually have a more physical approach, but have a more digital impact on it.
Gentlemen, a fascinating discussion. Questions are still flooding in. This one could run and run, but we're going to have to leave it there. Really appreciate your thoughts this morning. My thanks, you just heard from him there. Yemi Abitogun is head of Omnichannel Operations for Level Shoes, the world's largest shoe store in Dubai Mall. Thank you so much, Yemi.
Please come and visit us anytime, guys.
I'm a regular visitor. I've got the receipts to prove it, mate. And also Osama AlZubi, who's the Chief Technology Officer for Cisco Middle East and Africa, and author of Digital Disruption book. Osama, shukran jazeelan.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a fascinating discussion, gents. Really appreciate it. But of course, it's not over yet. If you want to listen to highlights of this discussion, you can do so the rest of this week on the Business Breakfast radio show. I know we're putting together a special podcast. There's going to be a special webcast as well, if you missed any of it, on Facebook and other social media channels. And of course, the next in our series of Back to Business events is happening later on this month, 29th of November. Brandy Scott's going to be taking the reins, and she is going to be discussing what we're calling the permanent pivot. You've got people like Tom Harvey, who's the general manager in the commercial sector for Spinneys, the big supermarket chain. Emma Banks, who is vice president of F&B strategy and development at Hilton for a massive region, Europe, the Middle East and Africa as well. As ever, if you want to be part of that, spaces are limited, just 40 on the Cisco Webex event. Go to our website to register, dubai1038.com. But for now, here at the incredible setting, our thanks to our hosts at the NASDAQ Dubai. Appreciate you joining us today for Back to Business. Thank you very much indeed, and have a great day.